the cooler, more efficient gaming CPU. Arrow Lake just was announced, boys. Long story short, Arrow Lake's a flop. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Arrow Lake did not cook, guys. Arrow Lake's not gonna cook. This is not the CPU we needed. This is not the CPU we've been waiting for. It's a huge disappointment, okay? This slide says it all. Geomean, negative 5% gaming performance over the 14900K. So if you're lucky enough to have a 14900K that has not degraded, well, it's faster than a CPU that hasn't even came out yet. This is just crazy. Negative 5% gaming performance. And you know, the CPU is not only going to be about gaming. Actually, you shouldn't, if you're a gamer, don't even bother with this CPU. Like, don't bother. It's L Lake. This CPU is L Lake. This has flopped. This is like Ryzen 5%, except it's negative 5%, boys. It's not good. We can look over what they've done here. This is the new compute tile, and the P cores are a little bit spread out, which is kind of nice to see. I think before they were all together, but you know, on that Ultra 9 SKU, we're gonna have 8 P cores, and they're spread out a little bit. You know, we have groups of 2 in the middle, and then down here, well, a group of 4, and then 2 and 2. And then those E cores, as you can see, E cores are actually really cool because look how small they are. 4 E cores is almost the size of 1 P core. And I can't help but think Intel really missed the opportunity here to just pump as much E cores they could in this compute die. I know it would bring up power, but hey, we're finally on a node where we can actually have that power budget. And the only thing that really would have saved this is if they did go with a 22 or what is it, 24 E-core version, or maybe even 32 E-core version of that Ultra 9. And I think, yeah, Arrow Lake would have cooked. It would have just destroyed in multi-threaded performance. But no, guys, still 8 P cores and 16 E cores, and it's actually less threads because we don't have hyper-threading. So this is also, guys, this is just so bad. We went from Intel 7, which is a 10 nanometer node, but for all intents and purposes, it's 7 nanometer because it's equal to TSMC's 7 nanometer, which it really isn't 7 nanometer. So for all intents and purposes, it's 7 nanometer, and then we're going to 3 nanometer and this enhanced 3 nanometer node, and we're only getting 9% uplift on those P cores. Say what you will about the Intel 7 node and how inefficient Raptor Lake was, but guys, it was a performer for how old of a node that was, and it should have not been able to even compete. Meanwhile, in gaming, it's getting 5% more performance than this CPU, which is kind of crazy to see. 9% is pitiful. That's less than they advertised for Lunar Lake. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's something going on with the new design architecture that is preventing this CPU from really stretching its legs. You know, it is a chiplet based design now, or tile based, whatever. It's not looking good, guys. 9%, that's like doomsday, worst case scenario, because we also have like a 5% reduction in clock speed. The one saving grace of Arrow Lake is the power consumption, particularly in a multi-core workload is when this would really matter, because in that scenario, you'd be doing so much power that your CPU is going to thermal throttle. Well, this is actually really good, guys. I'm not going to lie, but AMD has already done this to an extent. I think the Ultra 9 is going to be a little bit more efficient than AMD based on this graph here, but who knows? It looks like we're going to get the same multi-core performance on the Ultra 9 285K at 125 watts compared to the 14900K. So 14900K, 250 watts, Ultra 9 285K, 125 watts, same multi-core performance. That is pretty huge for content creators. I will say that, but honestly, are you going to get a whole new CPU just for that power consumption? I don't think it's as big of a deal to us people that buy our own PCs. If you had a server, sure, it's going to make a huge difference, but for us guys, I don't think it's a big deal. And if it was, then you'd probably already be on AMD and you wouldn't be interested in Intel anyways, right? I'm going to shrink myself way down. Okay, so this is kind of what we're working with as far as Arrow Lake goes. We have 36 platform tops. That's really only going to be, I think, 13 from the NPU. So the NPU is like non-existent, guys. It's not even a feature. There's nothing that can even utilized so low NPU power, like especially on a desktop platform when you're already going to have a GPU that has hundreds of tops anyways. They showed an Arc A770, which is a low-end card, and it has 260 tops. So, and then I know my 4080 has over 700. So the NPU with 13 tops or whatever, it's non-existent. It's a non-factor. Don't even consider it a thing. We're also going to get, this is the best thing also for creators, and just one of the best things about Arrow Lake, other than the power consumption, is we're getting Alchemist graphics, or this could be Battle Mage. I'm pretty sure it's Alchemist though. I could be wrong. And we're getting 4 Xe cores. And the main thing is we're getting AV1 encode and decode, guys. We're getting those amazing media encoders on your CPU, just integrated right in there. If you're on an older GPU and for whatever reason you upgrade to this, you can finally decode and encode with AV1, which is great. And if this has dual encoders, then yeah, this will be the platform for creators going forward. Unless you already have a 40 series GPU, a 4070 Ti higher, because you already have dual media encoders. But if you have an AMD GPU, then yeah, you're going to want to pick up an Arrow Lake CPU if you are a creator, and that will actually negate a lot of the bad things about AMD encoders and whatnot. So that's one saving grace of Arrow Lake, is the power consumption and these media encoders. So another thing Arrow Lake could be good at, and you know, this is a very niche use case, guys. I don't think Arrow Lake's going to sell well. Like, just look at Zen 5 cells. That's basically going to be Arrow Lake, probably even worse, because people care about performance and just saving. You know, sure, you are cutting electricity in half, but that's only on multi-core workloads. And if anyone else has an Intel CPU, you know that during gaming, it actually, and especially idle, it barely consumes any power when you're at idle, maybe like 7-10 watts, something like that. And gaming, maybe 80-90 watts, which really isn't too bad. So unless you're a content creator, the power consumption thing is not going to really, you aren't going to care about it. But another thing that, you know, I could see people buying this platform and getting into this is overclocking. And me, myself, I do really like to overclock. I like tuning my stuff to the metal. So this is kind of exciting. I'm not going to jump on Arrow Lake. I care about performance number one, and especially on desktop, I care about performance number one. So I'm not going to jump, but you know, them having a new IO tile is going to enable them. I've heard they can get up to 10,000 mega transfers. Now that's not guaranteed or anything. Their base spec is 6400, but Intel themselves have said that in the 8000s is going to be the sweet spot. That's going to far exceed what AMD can currently do. They're still stuck on their same IO die from Zen 4, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. So, you know, them having this tile-based design with a new IO die, yeah, you're going to be able to overclock pretty well. And something I wanted to talk about is the SkyMont cores. Their base clock speed is 4.5 or 4.6 gigahertz, and apparently Intel is saying you can get them to 5 gigahertz, and they have the same IPC as Raptor Lake, so they're almost basically a P core at this point. A performance-wise, you know, ISO clock speed. So I think, you know, Arrow Lake, at least the 285K, could be a multi-threading beast if you're going to overclock it. If you want to put it on a liquid cooling solution, I think that, yeah, you could get a lot more multi-core performance. I wouldn't be surprised to see 50K in R23, Cinemage R23 off of 285K, but hey, that's multi-threaded. That's only for creators. Multi-threaded is not going to help you in gaming, guys. New pricing with Arrow Lake, and it's actually very, very similar, but hey, at least they didn't increase the price, right? Less performance in gaming and increasing the price is like a no bueno. But yeah, so we're getting $589 for the Ultra 9, and if I look here at the i9 13900K, which I think these are most comparable to 13th gen, not 14th, because 14th was just, let's be real, it wasn't really a real generation, it was just binning. We have $589, so that's the same price. $394 for the U7, and for the i7 it was $409. So, you know, that's like $10 less, not really anything. With inflation, I guess it's kind of good. For the Ultra 5, it's $309, and it was $319 here, so another $10 reduction. So the pricing at least isn't out of control and crazy. But honestly, guys, I don't see why you would do this. Why do you want to buy a whole nother motherboard? Why do you want to buy these new expensive CPUs to get less performance in gaming? And we didn't talk about multi-threaded performance. They said it's going to be about 10% faster than the 14900K in multi-threaded. Sure, you can get the same performance at half the power, but if you want to push the power only 10% more, kind of crazy. Now, overclocking, maybe you could get that to 20% more, but still, a whole new platform just for that seems like a waste, guys. It really does. And we haven't even talked about what AMD is doing yet. AMD is going to be coming out with 3D V-Cache CPUs, and I know most people that probably listen to this channel and most people that are interested in building PCs are gamers. And the X3D V-Cache, it's just better for gaming. Like, it makes it to where you have to access the memory so much less that it just negates all the troubles and the design flaws of the Zen architecture. And that it's really one of the best products AMD has ever made. And it's looking like that Arrow Lake, well, actually, no, it's confirmed basically because it's slower than a 14900K in gaming. It won't beat the 7800X 3D. So yeah, if you just want a gaming CPU, just play games on your PC, get an X3D CPU, get the 7800X 3D or the 7600X 3D, or one of the new ones that are coming out. It'll probably only be 10% faster, if that. So nothing really to look forward to as far as CPUs goes, guys. And I don't know, like, it's just kind of disappointing. Like, I feel like our GPUs, like, what's going to happen when we get new GPUs this generation and they're CPU bottlenecked? I mean, I've seen the 4090 CPU bottlenecked at 4K in some games, guys. Like, we need faster CPUs, and AMD and Intel are just not giving this to us, you know? And I gotta say, Intel, it seems like they really tried. They really did. They've put in all this work. Let me go back. Like, Intel put in all this work on this die. They have all these other chiplets on a silicon interposer. They tried to do all these things right, lower latency, higher bandwidth. You know, they gave us a new IO die. We're getting faster memory, and we're getting all these things, which is, it's exciting. Like, as a techie, like, I'm like, wow, this is really cool technology, but the performance just isn't there. And it's crazy to think, like, there was something design wise on Intel's monolithic chips, like the 13900K, and that just made them such a performance powerhouse, so performant. Like, you got to think on which node they were on. We're jumping to one of the best nodes in the world right now, and it's literally slower in gaming. And I have to say, guys, it's most likely because of that tiled chiplet architecture. It looks like the Foveros technology, it's still not better than monolithic. It's still causing trouble in very reactive, low latency scenarios like gaming, guys. It's really sad to see. I know people are going to buy this, but I think it's going to be a tough sell for most people out there. AMD really disappointed us with their chips, and now Intel's disappointing us too. I know there's a lot of people out there that only buy Intel, so maybe they'll want to buy this for the power savings, but I don't know, guys. It's pretty much a nothing burger. Now, the difference between Intel and AMD in this scenario is Intel tried really hard and they still didn't give us that performance, while AMD, let's be real, guys, their 9000 series, they didn't put much effort into. They didn't even check if it runs correctly on Windows before it came out. And I wanted to talk to you guys something today about AMD because they just announced their Turin EPYC CPUs, and they've been tested by some YouTubers, and guys, they are off the rails crazy. They have 16 core chiplets, and I think there's like 14 of them or something like that. It gives them 192 cores. And not only that, guys, it's Zen 5C, so they upgraded the chips, and not only that, but they upgraded the IO die. Yes, that's right. They actually upgraded the IO die on these new server chips, and guess what? They're really performant, they're really fast. I guarantee you, if they didn't upgrade that IO die, they wouldn't be nearly as performant. They may have 17% more IPC, but it might not have even been realized if they didn't update the IO die. Now, the difference between the server and the client for us consumers is they did not update the IO die on the 9000 series, and that definitely held back performance, guys. We're still on a 6nm IO die with Zen 4 or Zen 5, and we're still using that Infinity Fabric wires and whatnot. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, Infinity Fabric technology works really good for servers. You don't need super low latency. You just need a lot of throughput and a lot of cores, and you can spread them out. And that's what this chip is doing here. So yeah, I was in the way the whole time. That's awesome. But Yes, so AMD did not give us an updated IO die for 9000 series. Let's be real, they barely even tried for consumers on 9000 series, and that's because they didn't have to. Meanwhile, Intel tried their very hardest and they still could not succeed, which is tough to see, guys. And as a techie, I really wanted, Arrow Lake to do good. I wanted Arrow Lake to cook. I made a whole video about how Arrow Lake needs to cook. And yeah, don't expect any good, huge performance gains in CPUs for a while, guys. Zen 6 probably won't come out for another 2 years. And then it's reported that Arrow Lake refresh is canceled. And Nova Lake has now even said it may not even be on LGA 1851, which we'll have to see. I think that they'll have to put it on that. Otherwise, Arrow Lake would be the only processor on that motherboard, which would really suck, guys. I think Arrow Lake is L Lake. I think Arrow Lake totally failed despite Intel's best efforts, and AMD's not even trying anymore for consumers. So the next GPUs are just going to have to be CPU bottlenecked, and that's just how it's going to be. We're going to have to offload everything to the GPU, even things that were traditionally on the CPU, just to keep up and just to keep on getting performance gains. Which CPU is for which person? If you are a gamer and that's all you do, get an X3D CPU. You will not be disappointed. That's great. It mitigates the downsides of the chiplet architecture, and you get a lot of FPS. It's a good CPU for that. If you want to do content creation and gaming, well, you could make an argument for Arrow Lake because of the media encoders, but if you have a 4070 Ti or up, you already have dual AV1 encoders. And I think that you should just stick with a 13900K if that's the case. And many of you may be saying, well, why not the 7950X? And I think for gaming, that CCD, that chiplet architecture, you aren't going to like it in the long run. You're going to get FPS dips, and you're going to have trouble with the interconnect of the CCDs, guys. So I think the monolithic 13900K, if you want to do gaming and content creation, will be your best bet. Now, if you don't have a 4070 Ti or up and you need the media encoders, go ahead and pick up Arrow Lake. It will save you some money instead of buying a huge GPU that costs a ton of money. Or if you have an AMD GPU, you can buy Arrow Lake if you want to do some great content creation. Okay. And now lastly, we have the person that just does content creation. And for whatever reason, maybe you don't need a discrete GPU. Then I think Arrow Lake will be great. It will be a good CPU for you. You will have the advanced media coders, and you'll have that multi-threaded performance at a much, much lower power. So you can buy a cheaper cooler. You can lock it to 125 watts and get 14900K multi-threaded. So that's the only real reason you would want to buy Arrow Lake, hands down, if you don't have a discrete GPU and you need the multi-thread performance, guys. That's my thoughts. I think Arrow Lake is L Lake. Arrow Lake failed us gamers, and it's not looking good. We're probably going to be GPU bottleneck for a while now, especially if we get a 5090. And honestly, guys, if you're on 13th gen, if you're on Ryzen 7000, or if you have a 5800X3D, hold on to it. Hold on to it for 2, 3, 4 years and be happy, because it doesn't look like we're getting any CPU performance gains anytime soon.